Recording in progress. tried for a year and a half to get into some of them. Only need 5. You only need 5.
So that's this one.
Okay,
It's the final presentation. I guess that's all the same.
Sorry, you heard, this is the angle of the, you need to read part in the picture of this. So if you hold your turn over there, you are still there. You're washing the street. Oh, that's fine. From you.
The double back games.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she is in black, so I think. All right, I've been disrespected before.
I don't know where. Is anybody on the phone? 3 or 4 of them. Yeah. 2 of them are the color wise.
You guys wanna come over here?
I
and
can
I'll
call them
slide
for
over
you.
there?
Can you be Vanna, please?
I can be there.
I wonder if.
McKay is going to have them all up on that too.
No.
This is just for here? Yeah, just for people to see if they actually. Well, it's not here. I know, but.
Those pins aren't in there good enough, I kept pushing them, they don't go easy.
All right, well, there we go.
So we can step.
We need to see them, they're here. How about that?
Hello.
Perfect. That's 4.
I'll move it, I'll put this up and then move.
It's not important, honestly, if people come in, it's good to have them, but, they'll be available probably next week. No, but I. So, but it's okay, we're not having anybody here.
Is anybody on the line? Is anybody on the conference call line?
They're too long, they're not short enough. Too short. No, not gonna work.
Watch out, watch out.
See a worker comp claim in the
Yeah. Call on you. Whiteboard test. See the color? You see the colors of those?
Hello? Hello? Where'd you go? Anybody on the line?
Hello.
Hello.
Evan's there. Okay, meeting's back in session. We'll conduct a public hearing pursuant to Elections Code, section 21507.1. Conduct the 3rd public redistricting hearing. Review draft maps, receive public input and proposals regarding the supervisor's districts. Who's taking this away? Our host?
Well, I believe that McKay will be providing a presentation on this. What I don't know is if the Zoom is set up for her just yet.
I'll make just a little comment real quick, is the county team has done a good job hustling this through with everything else that the county's going through. Of course, the fire and COVID as well as especially recognize Sarah and her efforts and contribution, really leading us out on this, and, everybody, it's just good collaboration. It's really good to see, particularly with everything we got going on, how much we, we're stressed and whatnot, but, big kudos to Sarah and the rest of the team.
And under a tight deadline.
And a tight deadline that kind of had moving targets, so. And a lot of
McKay, are you
uncertainty.
there?
Pardon me?
Oh, I am. It let me unmute myself. Yes, hello.
Okay, McKay, so we're ready to get this going.
All right. That sounds great. Okay. Is it all right if I share my screen? I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can everyone see draft maps?
Yes.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you again for having me. Again, my name is McKay Larrabee. I'm a senior GIS analyst at Flow Analytics, helping out the county team. And excuse me, I'd like to emphasize again what Gabriel said. Real huge thanks to the district team, Sarah and Marcy in particular, for just really their attention to detail and the amount of work that they've done getting these maps together has been really amazing. So wanted to thank you all for having me here. I'm going to go through the draft maps. But before I do, I just wanted to stop and take a step out at the higher level process flow. So we've had a lot of work up until this point, but this is the point where we really start to dive in and look at what could potentially become your final map. So we're going to present to you 4 draft maps today. And then we'll have, some based on public input and some information from you all. We'll revise those draft maps and then we'll produce that final map. So draft maps, just to remind everyone that draft maps are not final maps. These are not, they are generated by the county redistricting team from the current district boundaries and meet the redistricting legal requirements that I'll go through just an overview of in a minute. There can be more than one draft map. As you'll see today, we have 4. They do reflect public input given to date through testimony at these public meetings and submitted electronically to the team. And you'll see one of the draft maps has been, it reflects some of that public input. I will state that we did have a map that came in yesterday and want to appreciate the member of the public that submitted that. We can review that as well if you all are interested in seeing that. There is no single draft map that is expected to become the final map. Sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. And then below, I just have the website for the redistricting landing page that has a ton of helpful information on schedule, on maps, on the mapping software, that sort of thing. So the draft maps will be worked on and incorporate elements of the final map might incorporate elements from one or many of the draft maps. It will reflect public feedback, though you may not see specific comments or ideas in the final map. It will be a culmination of the overall public feedback. Redistricting team members will focus on what they've heard and how to prioritize those criteria. And there is no perfect map, and I think that's a really important piece. But more importantly, the final map will be some sort of compromise. And so keep that in mind as we look through these draft maps. This is a high-level overview of the redistricting foundations or the criteria, there's 4 musts. So districts must be population balanced. They must be contiguous, meaning there's no islands, unless they're connected by a road or a bridge. Redistricting must be done in compliance with local, state, and federal laws, including the Federal Voting Rights Act. And they must not be done to favor or disfavor a protected class or political party. There's 3 shoulds. So these are things that we should be attempting to do when making draft or final maps. Districts should be as compact as possible, which is, as I've spoken with the district team about, it's hard to do with Plumas because of the larger nature of the census blocks. But the district should attempt to be as compact as possible. Districts should preserve communities of mutual interest. Largely, this is identified through, the district team who's really involved and close to those communities of mutual interest, or from the public. And districts should also preserve the use of existing natural or artificial boundaries like lakes or rivers or roads. Here's just a review of the schedule. This is our 3rd public hearing, number 3. We will have a final public hearing on November 23rd when we'll review the final map at 1 p.m. In this very location. And then the Board of Supervisors will adopt the final map in mid-December. Okay, so with that, I'm just going to start with your existing conditions, which I think we've been through before, but for members of the public who have not seen this this piece before, we're essentially looking at you've got the existing districts right now in the dark gray line here. The actual existing census blocks contained within those districts is what we need to work with in order to produce a draft or final map. So you'll see the color block underneath represents the actual census blocks contained within that district. So this is District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4, and District 5. And so we'll be looking at these same colors throughout all these draft maps. And so keep these colors in mind. You also have in this dotted line, you have census designated places and the city of Portola. This is the important information that we want to look at up to the upper left. You're looking at each district having an ideal population of 3,968. And so you're looking at getting the overall range of population deviation, meaning the highest over that ideal population and the lowest under that ideal population. The culmination of that being under 5%. You definitely want it under 10%. If you can get it under 5%, you're in a very, very good place. So right now, Plumas County with the 2020 census, which is what we need to use in order to redistrict, is sitting at 12%. So that's a bit high. So anything over 10% is in that red color. Anything between 5 and 10% is in the yellow color, a little bit of caution there. And then anything below 5% is in the green color. And you can see mainly you've got District 3 that's only has a population deviation of 0.5%. But the others have larger deviations, like District 1 has a deviation from the ideal of 6.5, and District 2 has a deviation of negative 5.5. District 4 has a negative 5.2% deviation, and District 5 has a 3.7%, so above that ideal population. So keep these numbers in mind. As we go through, you'll see the same sorts of graphs and tables. So this is an overview of draft map 1. This is a sub-labeled community input. The mapping objectives are going to be over here, and the map description, a generalized description of the changes, are down here. So the map objectives for draft map 1, community input, were to have a low population deviation, take community sentiment into consideration, and it avoids attempts to avoid splitting most CDPs, census designated places, other than East Quincy and Quincy. So the description of this is that Delacour is completely within District 5. Kromberg, Spring Garden, and Greenhorn are in District 5, and Iron Horse is in District 1. And then if you look up here, you'll see the ideal population. The deviation here is at 3.9%. So it's in the green because it's a good population deviation under that 5%. And there's the individual numbers here. So I realize this is a lot of information. Essentially, I have 5 other graphics that kind of zoom into each of these districts. So you'll be able to see what that looks like. So you can see kind of the change area that we're talking about from the existing. And I'll have that for each of the draft maps. So in draft map 1, you can see that Delacour here is in District 5. This is a blown up version of the existing boundaries, which are in the dark black line. And then you can see all the change areas. So Iron Horse in this draft map is in District 1, Delacour in 5. This is District 2, which is fairly large. That's the reason why it looks almost like an overview. But it gives you a little insight into the break between Quincy and East Quincy, and we'll be able to see that better in when we review District 4. This is District 3. No changes made to District 3. The only changes are that the lines are drawn to census blocks instead of the existing boundary. This is that District 4, where you can see the split between District 4 and District 2 for both Quincy and East Quincy. It looks like it goes right along this road. And District 5, where you see, again, kind of a repeat of the changes here: Greenhorn, Spring Garden, Kromberg in 5, as well as Delacour, completely contained in 5, and then Iron Horse going to 1. So that's draft map 1. Again, draft, not a final map. I'll go on to draft map 2, and then I have a summary slide at the end where we can really kind of dive into each of these. We can always go back to a previous slide. This is draft map 2. This is labeled, sublabeled minimal change and lowest deviation of all of the draft maps. So the mapping objectives here were to obtain that lowest population deviation. It is the least change from existing boundaries. And the description is essentially that there's a minimal amount of change. The split census designated places are remain split. The overall population, or the overall deviation, is 2.1%, which is lower than the other 3, which are somewhere around 3.7 to 3.9. And then if we look closer in, you can see where they're minor, encompassing from 5 into 1. And then for District 2, you can see very minor changes. District 3, no changes at all. District 4, some minor changes. And then District 5, some minor changes. So that's the least change from the existing lines, bringing it from 12 12% deviation down to that 2.1% deviation. Draft map 3 is sublabeled communities of interest. So the map objectives here are that, again, that low population deviation, keep communities of interest in mind, and a little focus on compactness here. The map description shows that District 3 reaches to the south to encompass Belden, Tobin, and Caribou. It does keep Lake Almanor, watershed fully in District 3. My apologies if I mispronounced that. And adds Canyon Dam to District 2. The overall deviation is 3.7%. So again, in that green zone. And as we go through here, you'll see minor tweaks into District 1. Delacour is still split. Iron Horse is in 5. District 2, the big changes to District 2 are over here on the west side with Caribou, Belden, and Tobin. And then coming in to pull in Canyon Dam, and then District 3. So that's where you'll see the changes to District 3. I believe that this is the only draft map that that modifies District 3. This is that District 4. A look at where it's reaching out or in, and then you've got District 5 with these changes here. So that is draft map 3. Draft map 4 is a public input map. The mapping objectives is to obtain the a low population deviation and address specific public input that came into the county team. So the description of this is that Meadow Valley, Plumas, Eureka, and Mohawk Vista are added to District 2. District 4 encompasses Chandler Road and Ketty, and Delacour is contained within District 5. I believe Iron Horse is in 1. So this is a look at District 1 with that change. Delacour completely in 5, Iron Horse in 1. You can start to see District 2's reach down in this draft map 4. So this is that District 2 that you can see is reaching down to Meadow Valley and then down into District 5. And yes. And then this is District 3. Again, no changes to District 3. District 4, you can see District 4 reaching into District 2 up into Ketty, and then Meadow Valley goes to 2. And this is District 5. So you see quite a few changes here and here. And so these are all 4 draft maps, 1 through 4. It's got the mapping objectives generalized up here underneath the draft map. And then you also have total population deviation. So draft map 1 had 3.9%, draft map 2, 2.1%, draft map 3, 3.7%, and draft map 4, 3.8%. And that concludes the presentation. I know that that's a lot of information that I've just laid upon you. I will mention that we have on the landing page for the county, we have all 4 of these maps loaded into a district scenario modeler, as well as the existing boundaries. So if you want to play around, if there's one that that you think might be a viable candidate for a final map, but you think it needs to be tweaked in this way or that way, then you can go into that that DSM, District Scenario Modeler, and use that as your base map to make changes and tweaks to. And I can show you, let's see, here we go. This is what it will essentially look like when you go to the landing page and then click on the District Scenario Modeler. This is what I'm saying, is that you have all the 4 draft maps, and then you have the existing district boundaries that you can all use as a base map. With that, I will hand it over to for discussion and public input.
Well, who wants to kick this off? Yeah, a lot of changes in between all the 4 maps. District 2 seems to be the one that gets impacted quite a bit, and that was the district that I'm in. You know, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways we can go on this, but I'll for you guys. How do you guys want it?
Oh, it appears to me, Kevin, you're after the land grab.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You're already on the biggest, but then I wonder if they're not just trying to create some kind of offland.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Come on. I'm trying to lessen.
And if anybody has any specific questions, I worked on drafting all of these maps, so I can tell you some of the details as to why they ended up the way they did. If there are any questions.
Yeah, Chair and Sarah, if that's okay, I'd like to hit on that just really quick, maybe some of the rationale for each of them. In particular, there's one that interests me the most for certain reasons, and I'll wait till we get to that point, but I think if we could highlight some of the rationale real quick for each one, that might be beneficial.
Okay, well, so draft map 1 is the first map we came up with, and that was based on a lot of input that Marcy has been provided, that Greenhorn, Cromberg, Spring Garden really feel that they belong in 5 as opposed to 2. They felt the disconnect there. So in order to get that population down, because 5 was already overpopulation, what ended up happening is we pulled that into 5, but then we needed to pull some from 1 as well. And we wanted to avoid separating out the census designated places. So that's why Delaware ended up in 5 and Iron Horse ended up in 1, because that balanced their population appropriately. I believe that the way that that 1 was done was so that 1 and 5 have slightly lower populations, because we know in 10 years there's going to be a big change in 2. So it's still well within the deviation, but they ended up having a slightly lower population with slightly more, and I'm talking, 30, 40 people more, in 2 and 4.
So it's an incentive to catch up?
Hmm?
Is that an incentive to catch up?
It would be, and it's just acknowledging the reality that we know 2 is going to lose the population. So, that would address that slightly, but again, not the extent that we know. With 4, so we pulled some of East Quincy, which was in 5 into 4 to make up that population down. The problem with both Quincy and East Quincy is there's the most population in the entire county is going to be concentrated right in there. So, we also had to pull it 2 down. I'm not sure which road that is, but it comes down pretty far into 4. So more of Quincy and East Quincy would be within the Quincy zip code. And then 3 remains the same because, you know, Surrey's district is doing really well with population, so it's very often not changed. So map 2, is the one that we wanted to kind of keep everything as similar to what we have now as possible. County's been through a lot of change. If we could avoid that change, that's always ideal. It does not address the issue of people in Cromberg and Greenhorn wanting to be in 5. It keeps that well within 2. It does move just a little bit of District 4 into 5. I think it was 3 census blocks that we moved over into District 4 from 5. And then we pulled some of Delacour from 1 into 5, but not all of Delacour. So all of the census designated places that were split continue to be split. There are no changes there. But it does balance the population well, and, you know, you have very few people having to change districts. And then with 3, 3 is the only one that actually changes District 3 Supervisor Thrall's district, and that was to encompass a few different issues that the county is aware of. One is the watershed. This takes all of that Lake Elsinore watershed and puts it within District 3, so that only one supervisor is having to manage that watershed issue. It takes Canyon Dam and puts it in District 2, and the reason for that was because Canyon Dam also suffered significant losses in the fire, and so that really consolidates the fire recovery district into 2. And
Sir, if I could real quick, thanks. So this is one that's of particular interest for me, and the reason why is because what we're after here with redistricting is representation. And if the county takes a look at what we know now and where we're going in the next 10 years until the next math exercise that Marcy will lead us on, well, she plans to retire, but if we look at what we know now and what we will be facing in the next 10 years, it'll be recovery and rebuilding for probably at least half of that next decade, more or less. As Sarah mentioned, it puts the Elsinore watershed into one district as well. And then it kind of keeps the demographics of the different districts in like and similar demographics. And so we go back to the purpose of this, which is representation. We're going after the big ticket items, which is a watershed and representation for rebuilding and recovery with the communities that were significantly impacted, essentially burnt to the ground. So that's just one thing that I wanted to highlight here on this map.
And you might notice that other than the change to 3, this map looks fairly similar to 2, and that's because we use 2 as a base for the population balance. And so you're going to have those same changes, a little bit more into Delacour for District 5, and a little bit more of East Quincy and 4 that you have in District 2, because that provides us a nice balance, a nice place to go for a balanced population. And then moving to District 4, this is, or to map 4, this is a public input map. We actually had an individual who lives on Chandler Road call in and stated, you know, I don't feel that I belong in District 2, my interests aren't being represented in 2 because that's really Greenville, Indian Valley, so people who represent me, who would live here, would never be able to be supervisor, and I know that Meadow Valley, that they chose to take Chandler Road out and put Meadow Valley in. I feel Meadow Valley belongs more in District 2 than Chandler Road. So we made those changes based on this individual's input. And the rest of the changes were just the only way we could make the population balance for the year. And so that's why it pulls down quite a bit.
But Dr. Rupp, when you say public input, was this the input from an individual?
And individual, yes. It was,
I would really be extremely cautious
yes.
in terms of embracing an individual, because I can tell you with relative certainty, the people in Meadow Valley will collectively lose their minds if they were nothing against Mr. Goss. But, you know, there's a long-standing, I think, culture in terms of District 4's representation of Bucks Lake and Meadow Valley. And like I say, if public input consists of an individual, that is almost really negligible, because I don't know who that individual was or is, but if they're completely bonkers, and that's all you've got to deal with, but that's all your public input is, I would almost say, appreciate it, thank you, bye.
So with the redistricting process, public input is a major component. And we have a population here who may not be as tech savvy. And so for that, we have to find a way to incorporate that public comment in to these public meetings. So that's why this map was chosen, because honestly, we only have the 3 draft maps already. If this was, you know, if 50 people had called up with different ideas, 1, I wouldn't have been able to draw up their draft map based on that. And 2, it just wouldn't be practical to present them all. In terms of this, it was public input, and we have to provide that, so that's the reason. But I won't tell you what the county team's impression of this map was. I'll just tell you that we are very well aware that no draft map is intended to be the final map.
You don't have to share with me the county team's feelings about map 4, but I will feel very comfortable in sharing with you my feelings about map 4, and I think it's crap. As a clinical diagnosis or technical descriptor, no, I don't like 4. I can deal with 2 and 3, but I cannot, and I am overwhelmingly confident that my constituents, existing constituents in the Meadow Valley area, would share my sentiment.
I have the same concern. And if we had 5,000 people commenting, that'd be a pretty good pile of paper right there.
And so to the extent that public input is valued and incredibly important, it's a shame that the public input consisted of 1 individual.
And again, this is one of those, all public input needs to be kept, I believe, for 10 years. That's all maintained on the county website. And so we have limited resources here, so we do what we can to provide that. There was another map that we had drafted, again, trying to figure out a population balance that split Greenville, and we chose not to present that for very similar reasons. We knew it wouldn't be popular, that it would be difficult given everything going on to even suggest that, so we pulled that one. So there are some considerations that go into each of these maps, but these are the considerations, and this is why these maps are being presented.
Well, I want to just echo the county administrator's sentiment that he expressed earlier. I can't thank you guys enough for the time. A lot of beating your heads against walls and pulling hair out of it. You guys have done a tremendous job, and I want to personally thank you for that. But I got no use for math.
I would just like to state, and for the public that's listening or is going to log on to this, because these are all kept on the website for 10 years, and you can go back and review all of these public meetings and make your comments from there. yes, this is great software. Yes, it takes a little bit getting used to, but you can put it on a piece of paper and email it or send it to the county redistricting team, and that's also a public comment that we will take into account. You don't have to go in and try to draw or redesign one of these maps. We will take that into consideration in putting that into the potential next draft map.
And you'll-
And-
Yes,
Just for the record,
you'll-
on the back of a napkin, even.
So we're not here today
Okay,
to, go ahead, Kevin.
I just want to say, just for the record, yeah, I'd call in for, District 4 or anything else, except for, map number 4, sorry. It just, screams to me that over the next 10 years, this district in number 2, whether I'm supervisor or anybody else is gonna be dealing solely with Indian Valley. And, so map 1 makes the most sense to me, and, I will tell you that right off the bat. It's, you're gonna have to be centric to here, you're gonna have to be dealing with, all of the issues in the canyon, all of the issues here in Indian Valley, and up to about the passing lanes going towards Sheriff's District. And, it makes the most sense to me. So, you know, I get it. This district too has been spread apart for so long. And it is a huge, underpopulated, yes. But it's, maybe the whole thing needs to be redrawn. But, from my viewpoint, map 1 makes the most difference, or most, sense to me.
Well, what I was gonna say is we're not here to pick one of these maps over another right now. This is a public hearing
No, definitely not.
or input from the public, mostly public oriented.
It's mostly public oriented, but also, the county team is, and Flo, assuming McKay is still on, is looking for feedback from the supervisors as to what they're liking, what they're not liking, what changes they'd like to see, so that we can really pull those out into a draft map to be presented at the next public hearing on the 23rd.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I did want to mention that a member of the public did submit a map yesterday. It was too late to get it into this presentation, but I did want to see if you all were interested in looking at that map, or if you'd just like to review that on your own time.
This is one more individual?
This is another individual who presented a map. McKay, do you know who it was who presented that map?
I do, and they are on the call.
Okay. That, I would leave that up to the Board of Supervisors.
Do we have the ability to bring the screen back out and see that from, okay?
Did she send that to us now?
I believe we could pull that back up fairly easily. It's not
McKay,
true,
can
McKay.
Can you put it back on the screen, okay?
Yes, am I sharing my screen?
You're going to.
You are, why don't we-
Gotcha. I'm gonna pull up their map, and give me one moment, because I'm gonna zoom out so that you see the full district. So this is the district scenario modeler.
McKay, real quick, our projector's still warming up, so if you could give us just a few more seconds.
Great.
Okay, I think we're good to go. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm gonna pull this over here and I will see if I'm happy to present, if the member of the public wants to speak to this. I think you have the ability to unmute, but if not, I can present. I'm just gonna allow them the opportunity. Okay, great. I think I'm going to present. I did want to kind of go through the justification and the thinking on making this map. They said that their map has a smaller deviation in population between the districts, 3.9% versus the current 12%. They were able to keep all communities of census designated places together except for East Quincy. And in the district map, the census designated places for East Quincy, Delacour, and Spring Garden are split in the current one. They state that they think it is important to even out the population between districts as much as possible and to keep the census designated places together. So this is their map that they came up with. The total deviation is this 3.9%. And you can see District 1 is under by 50 folks. District 2 would be over by 57. There's that, not to admit the dinosaur falling over, right? District 3, 20 folks over, still at that 0.5%. District 4, 99 folks over for 2.5% of the deviation. And 5 is right in a really good sweet spot of minus 13 people for negative 0.3%. So wanted to present that as a piece of public testimony. Folks are at least using the software, which is really great. And if we can get more folks to keep on using the software and in fact go to one of the draft maps or the existing and take into consideration elements from say this member's map or elements of draft map 2 and combine them into draft map 1. So there's a lot of availability for you all to tinker around to see if you can get a good population deviation with keeping those communities of interest in mind. And just to review here, you've got several different communities of interest that you can click on and look at what is split. If there is a census designated place or a city that's split, it'll pop up here. You can click on that and it'll take you to that exact split of how many folks are in either of those districts that it's split at. And then some selection detail below. My apologies, my system is running slowly. It always does with Zoom. There it is.
Kind of hard to decipher. Just like that.
So again, if you go to the Plumas County landing page and then click on District Scenario Modeler, you'll be able to click on any one of the draft maps or the existing boundaries and work on removing and adding census blocks from one to another if you're interested in that.
And because the software can be a little unwieldy, I know McKay had offered if any of the supervisors need to contact either Flow or if they want to work directly with the county team, we do have access to the account and we can go through it with the specific supervisors, obviously on a one-on-one basis, but and that way you're not trying to wrangle the software to do what you want. Just let us know what you would like to see.
that to the board for further discussion or let them know?
So do we have any public comments? Anybody on the line?
There is no public comment over here.
There's anybody on the Zoom?
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. It doesn't sound like anybody really likes map 4. I don't really like map 4 either.
Now, that other map that was submitted and that we just looked at, didn't look, just from what I could discern from here, it didn't look too radical in terms of.
I just couldn't tell because it didn't have these lines in the board, exactly what it encompassed.
So just based on having done this and, reviewing several maps with McKay, that one pulls quite a bit of District 1 into District 2. So it kind of wrapped around into where District 1 is. The county team had considered a few of those maps. The concern was including some of Sierra Valley in with Indian Valley, in light of everything going on and also in light of the differing needs of Sierra Valley and Indian Valley.
I see Gabriel's point about, map 3. I don't know. Sherry, did you have anything to say about that?
No, not really. You know, I'm probably the least impacted of anybody, so, the only thing I have to say about the whole process is I was sincerely hoping that we could get District 2 into a more manageable geographic situation, because, you know, as the crow flies, it might make sense to go from Indian Valley to Cromper. As the road goes, it takes a long time. There's huge geographical separations that the District 2 supervisor has to deal with. And I was really hoping that we could come up with something that was that a little bit more palatable.
You know, Sherry, that's one thing that has never really bothered me is the size of the county or the districts or everything else, because I think it's every supervisor's district to represent everybody in the county.
Yes, it is.
I think I've pretty much been over every district in this county in the last 7 years, solving problems here, there, and everywhere, and it's never bothered me a bit. We're not gonna change the topography or geography of this county or where people live or accessibility, so.
I don't think it's for our convenience, but I do think that people that I know that live in Cromberg have felt like they're cut off, because their supervisor isn't, you know, really close to their district. So I'm not saying we don't all represent the whole county, because we do.
No,
And I've certainly been everywhere in the county also.
No,
But-
I agree.
But thinking of the citizens, you know, most of them kind of like it if their county supervisor is somewhere within, you know, 10 miles of where they live.
Right.
Or 15 or something.
And that's like East Quincy. You know, it's in my district, but to me, it's part of Quincy.
Right.
And even when we had the cannabis hearings, remember, I think in my district, we had it at the little resource center on the corner up there. And then we had Quincy's meeting at the fairgrounds, and it was Kathy Felker was mad that this meeting wasn't in her district.
Right.
So I explained to her that we already had the meeting at the Mohawk Resource Center. So, I mean, I think we're always gonna have that call.
Oh, I think, no doubt about it.
I think I suffer that problem the least next to you, Supervisor Kroll. There are, geography and mountain ranges that do create natural borders and distinct residential areas. when you look at Kronberg Slope, Greenhorn, you know, it's on that corridor. It would be nice to see some of that go to District 5. Because it has long been a source of contention amongst the people that live on that southern slope and down the Highway 70 corridor, that they are in a district that is so geographically isolated from the bulk of District 2.
Sorry, I got disconnected. Yeah, continue on, great.
So, yeah, I mean, you go from Butte County all the way to Lassen County in District 2. That's a big stretch of land.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
And not only that, but, huge differences in the demographics in each of the areas.
well, and the culture, history, you know, going back to what this county was when it was shaped back in the 1800s, there are distinctions within geographical boundaries that are unique and are looked upon by citizens as being, quote unquote, either in their neighborhood or in their sphere of influence, you know, or what they consider their home region. And yeah, I think it would be great if people on the south slope of you know, the Grizzly Ridge could find themselves in either District 1, 5, or 4. There's some mix there.
Right.
And that's really, you know, that's really the issue, I think, that is probably most significant, that I hear the most from in terms of.
That's always been the issue.
Yeah,
Always been the issue.
that's generally the issue that I hear the most from, regardless of what district I'm traveling in. I'll leave it at that.
Supervisors, would you be interested in having the county team draft a map that combines map 1 and map 3?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking as well.
Okay.
No, I'd like to see
Great
that.
minds think alike, isn't it?
So, we can put one together that encompasses those changes, that pulls 2 a little bit further into 4, pulls 5 out, but then pulls 3 down, and, get that out to you fairly shortly, to see what that does to the population.
Yeah.
I like it. Sounds good.
That'd be great. Kind of a consensus, I think, right? Okay. Okay, any other questions or anything? Marcy, nothing?
Just for the record, what this is going to mean ultimately in the end is next May, when you get your ballots for the June primary, wherever these lines end up, whatever map gets readopted, you may be voting on a new supervisor, you may be voting on no supervisor. This is what this ultimately is who you vote on to represent your district. But if your line gets moved and you voted for a supervisor 2 years ago, you may be in a district where you're voting on another supervisor this time. It's just really going to depend. And I just want the public to know that and understand that just because you voted for a supervisor last time doesn't mean you're not going to vote for a supervisor this time for the same district. You may be in a different district.
It's very
Well, I think that's a great point, Marcy. And I also would like you to expound on, the voters' rights of Greenville in regards to District 2 and the Greenville population, and what do they have in store for them, in regards to voting rights? And if they're living in District 4, living in District 5, living in District 3, what, are they available to vote?
Or
for District 2 issues.
If they are still claiming their domicile pursuant to the elections code as Plumas County, as 123 Main Street in Greenville, but their mailing address happens to be Susanville, or their mailing address happens to be Westwood or Palermo, we actually had. If that's their mailing address, that's perfectly okay, and that's where they will receive their ballot, as long as they have not re-registered to vote somewhere else. They are still claiming Plumas County as their residence. It doesn't matter where their mailing address is. They just need to notify our office of their mailing address.
Is that like an emergency ordinance type of a thing? Is that something that, is adopted under the emergency type of a code, or is that just something that naturally happens?
That naturally happens. We have a lot of snowbirds, specifically in the Arizona area from District 3, District 5, District 1, and they notify us of a seasonal address, October 1st through April 30th every year that, my mailing address is, West Mesa Avenue in Mesa, Arizona. And that's in that time frame, if we're generating a mailing or we're mailing out ballots, that's where their ballot is going to go. And all they have to do is contact our office. They can do it over the phone, they can do it through an email, they can message us. The forms are available on the website for seasonal addresses. And we will be getting out that information, actually, after today's election day for a small district, when we're preparing for the adoption of these new maps, letting people know what their options are.
So it's really,
Exactly.
it's just an absentee ballot, right? Like an absentee.
It's like an absentee ballot, but I just want to make sure that all these voters are well aware of their options, which they're still claiming their address, even though the debris is getting cleaned up on their site, they can still claim that address as being their address, or their PO box as being their PO box in Greenville.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, good, all right.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Great job. Appreciate all your hard work. In such a short notice also. Thank you. Meeting adjourned until Tuesday, November 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you all.